Hey folks, Valentin the Mad here, and today we'll be looking at the destruction in World and Conflict. The game is an absolute classic, very enjoyable gameplay wise and, I can say straight up, quite nice in our aspect. Just a pleasure revisiting it every so often and making this video as well. So let's get right into it and see what we have. As for the buildings, it is based on all over variations. You have the clean variation, the destroyed one, and a few in between. The cool thing about this aspect is that every single building and structure can be destroyed. You won't have any building remain standing after a nuke. There is an issue here though. The destroyed variation of every building will remain no matter what. So, if you nuke the remains of a hut, those wrecks aren't going anywhere. Not a huge issue, but being able to annihilate those, if they take enough damage, would be appropriate. I don't know the cool thing about those wrecks. There will be a debris texture around them. Nothing fancy, but it does help make the aftermath look better. So many games have nothing and the surroundings of a wrecked building would just be clean. The big feature, however, in our aspect is the terrain and vegetation damage. So every single explosion will have a response on the terrain, and there are two main types of responses. First up is the simple decoy response for the smaller stuff by these game standards. Those won't deform the terrain, they don't harm the grass, and they'll vanish in about a minute. So yeah, you won't have every single missed anti-air rocket leave a permanent response on the terrain. But for a more significant explosive, the response will be exceptional. Very nice looking craters that will deform the terrain, delete any grass there, and, very importantly, those are permanent. Also, you have craters of various sizes, and this response for the strafe run. Now as for the limitations, you have locations where there is basically no deformation. And where you do have deformation, there is a limit to how much you can deform it. So even if a certain area gets continuously bombed, you can't keep digging into the ground. Despite those, for the most part it will deliver an awesome response and play a huge role in the transformation of a location from a nice clean area to a total mess. Now, as for vegetation, all of it can be destroyed. Either burned, knocked over, or both. Seems pretty trivial, right? But it is something that several recent titles that I personally otherwise enjoyed didn't have. And aside from the response factor, it plays a strategic role as well. The woods provide concealment for infantry, so you do very much have a factor of tactical deforestation. A few issues I should note. Vehicle wrecks disappear in a minute. The helicopter crashes are not great. The physics for those feel kind of weightless, very off, I would say. Very few, but you do have some indestructibles. For some reason this crane can be brought down. Kind of strange, all things considered. And rocks remain as the nemesis of destruction, not unique to this game. Despite those and some things that are just limitations of the game's age, it still delivers an awesome experience. Every building can be brought down, most props can be annihilated, the permanent terrain damage looks great, and you do have tactical deforestation as well. The result is environments that will get transformed one explosion at a time. Now, some thoughts on perhaps if a modernized version or a direct spiritual successor were to be made today. So, more locational building damage. With current tech, you probably could have a multi-layer thing on buildings, looking much like this actually. A feature like that coupled with locational variations, chunks of the building that would get destroyed if taken enough damage. Another one that comes to mind would be some form of lasting vehicle wrecks. If the gameplay and the scale are basically the same, that probably could be done in the Company of Heroes way. Wrecks stay until they are blown up by something big enough, or if armor is just passing through. If the scale is large enough, the Regiment's way could be an option, where they basically just stick around, units go through, it looks kind of silly but it delivers awesome aftermath. And if possible, have them blow up if they get hit by something big enough. And of course kind of a given, but modernized particle effects and maybe having some of those last for longer. Possibly even affecting the view of units, so building collapses, you have a bunch of dust from that and it could stay for a while and provide some concealment. And yeah, we do have some newer games that are clearly inspired by War and Conflict, but they are not a direct spiritual successor. So, there's definitely a void to be filled there, but the old game still holds up beautifully, and if you haven't played it, I do very much recommend checking it out. So, that is it for today. Do let me know how you feel in the comment section, and if you enjoyed the video, subscribe and share it around. And do consider supporting on Patreon. For $1 a month you have these videos a week early, you get the interviews a week early, and of course you do very much help out. So a big thank you to all those supporters, and consider joining as well. Also, if you like the music you hear in the intro, outro, and in the background, the YouTube and Spotify playlists are in the description. Until next time!